Hello and welcome to Stage 7. Just one day left before the Tour of Britain takes to the streets of the capital city. Today will be long, flat and almost certainly tailor-made for Mark Cavendish. The race itself, though, seems as if it's out of reach. Somerset was the setting, the last chance to wrestle Lars Boom out of the gold jersey. Ian Bibby made the first big move of the day, riding for seconds at the first sprint, till he and Geraint Thomas spectacularly touched wheels.
Oh, what a crash there!
Thomas rode on, but Bibby was out. After that, Lars Boom called a halt for a while, and when hostilities were resumed, no one managed to make anything significant stick. Except John Tiernan Locke, who took enough mountain points to seal the King of the Mountains. And Iker Kamano attacked on the final run-in, but they caught him too, only for Lars Boom to demolish the stage with an emphatic win.
Here he comes, Boom. This is his second stage victory. Thank you very much. Another 10-second bonus, and that means I've gone further ahead of my nearest challengers.
Geraint Thomas then drops off the leaders board. He's in 12th at 1:49. Mark Cavendish in 16th place at 2 minutes and 11 seconds. In second place, Leopold Koenig from NetApp at 28 seconds to Lars Boom. Dan Lloyd, the best placed Brit, in third at 29 seconds. Yes, indeed, it would be tempting and probably correct to say that was the day on which the 2011 Tour of Britain was decided. Janto, we've spoken at length, haven't we, about how strong Lars Boom is, and rightly so. He's made almost no full steps on this race, but yesterday a little bit of good luck on his side as well.
Absolutely, we've seen the front group come into the last corner. It looks like Julian Dean's just come in way too hot, gone into the barriers and gifted Lars a 10-metre gap, but obviously it's not 10 metres, it's 10 seconds as well on the line with the bonus seconds.
It's more than that indeed, and early on in the race he saw two of his big rivals in the general classification, both British riders, unfortunately from our perspective, contrived to take each other out.
Yeah, you know, really unfortunate. I was in the position to see the crash, obviously, and it's very disappointing to see any favourites go down, but especially not like the top two contenders taking each other out. Really unfortunate, and I feel very sorry for them both. If
you're ever in any doubt about how hard bike riders are, though, that crash was spectacular. How do they survive those things sometimes?
It's true. Riders are very, very tough. The desire to get back on your bike is paramount. As soon as you've come down, as long as nothing's broken on the bike, nothing's broken on you, literally, doesn't matter what your condition is, you just want to get back on and get to the finish, because you can then start to get some treatment and think about the next day.
OK, well, Geraint Thomas, as far as we understand it, got out relatively unscathed, albeit losing a bit of time yesterday. Ian Bibby, very different story for him. He broke his collarbone, and this morning I spoke to Phil Griffiths, his team manager.
He's at home now, distraught. I mean, basically, this is our one and only opportunity to come up against Cavendish and Sky and Geraint and these guys. Well, come up against them. We come up against Geraint yesterday. Hey, but cost Geraint the race probably. I mean, Geraint's the only one that could challenge for the lead. So massive disaster for both. I mean, I'm gutted. I mean, we've had a few crashes this year.
Disappointing, of course, for Ian Bibby, and disappointing too for his team at Motorpoint. But what of Team Sky? They have had a difficult Tour of Britain of late, but yesterday they were buoyed by a bit of good news, re-signing the new star, Chris Froome. Signing Chris Froome. I guess it might feel like signing a new rider, given the absolute transformation in the man.
Yeah, like you say, it's been a bit of a transformation. I mean, we've known that Froome, has something, but we've never really seen it, in a solid display like he did in this year as well. So yes, it's obviously, I think he knows how good the team is, how good they've been to him, and what the amount of work we put in. So I don't think he would get that from other teams. So it's nice to have him, continuously on board, continue on board with us. And obviously, we hope that he will repeat his performance of the Vuelta. I mean, he's shown his climbing abilities, he's shown his time trialing abilities, and that's what it takes to win a Tour. So yeah, I mean, it's another feather to our cap and another piece of armoury for us.
The Tour de France is one thing, the Tour of Britain's quite another, isn't it? And it's a difficult race to win, isn't it?
Certainly. I mean, every bike race is difficult to win. Being on a home soil, I think it's a little more difficult than usual. And we came up against a great Lars Boom who can sprint. We know his pedigree, world champion, cyclocross, time trial. we tried everything we could, and unfortunately, Geraint had a nasty tumble yesterday, and that was really, our weapon out of action.
The rolling roads of East Anglia provide the perfect surface for the longest stage of this year's tour, 200 kilometres of horizontal terrain with the odd bump along the way as the riders start in Suffolk and then head north towards Norfolk, and the sprinters finish on the Sandringham estate. The low-lying lands of East Anglia are the backdrop to the penultimate stage of this year's race. Bury St Edmunds, the starting point from which the riders will cut through the heart of Suffolk and Norfolk, passing through the picturesque towns of Hadley and Eye and Suffolk's county town of Ipswich. All that before the final few kilometres brings the race sprinting onto the Queen's little retreat at Sandringham. OK, let's get on with the action now. Plenty of racing to come on the roads from Bury St Edmunds to Sandringham. It's the longest stage of the tour, and it's yours to enjoy in the company of Hugh Porter and Brian Smith.
Well, massive crowds have turned out once again to support the Tour of Britain. And as Ned said, it is a long, long stage today, and it'll be an interesting one, maybe an opportunity for one or two of the lowly placed riders to slip away and make a name for themselves.
Well, it is a flat stage. We've seen a lot of mountains in the few stages we've had just recently, but again, yes, a lot of riders will be thinking we need to try and get something out this year's Tour of Britain.
Well, there he is right in the middle, Last Boom in that IG Markets gold jersey. He's got an advantage of 28 seconds over Koenig of Team NetApp. And then one place lower is the British rider Danielle Lloyd, 29 seconds back. And of course, on their minds will be that time trial tomorrow morning. So everything is still finely poised, but Boom is the best of the time trialers.
Well, you would think that Boom would be able to, if nothing happens today, he'd be able to take that lead tomorrow into the time trial, probably not only lead the race, but actually win the stage tomorrow. He is one of these great time trialists, so we'll have to wait and see. But today, the longest stage of the Tour of Britain, so we're expecting some early attacking.
And of course, the kudos of winning a stage in the Tour is always on everybody's mind. Well, right on the front again, it's Ann Post. For me, Ann Post, who really is a third division side, have been the team of the race.
No, they are. You've just seen the nod to get out the way, and it's Bagdonis from Lithuania, the Ann Post Sean Kelly team, going off the front at the moment, and he's a big strong lad, won the RAS, the Tour of Ireland this year already.
And on the way to that victory, he clinched 2 stages as well. Well, he's 48th overall. He's almost 11 minutes behind the gold jersey, and he's going to get company here. One of the riders from Raleigh coming across.
Yeah, the sun is shining in this stage, and the rider from Raleigh coming across at the moment. Haven't got too much of an advantage with one of the Enduro racing riders on the right-hand side.
This is the perfect scenario. When you get riders that are lowly placed overall, when you're in the penultimate day of the Tour, they are probably going to be given their head by the people who are controlling the classifications, and once that lead has been established and they are comfy with it, then they'll let them race away.
Well, the one thing that Rabobank have not got to do today is let anybody from HTC or Sky get in the breakaway today, because it means that without any help towards the front, a breakaway could try and succeed. So the breakaway might go away, but they have to make sure that HTC and Sky are not involved, because if that gets too much, then there'll be less teams to help them at the front.
Same brace of riders distancing themselves off the front of the main peloton. There's also another scenario to consider here as well, Brian. Every time a rider from Ann Post goes away, that means that if they stay clear, they can pick up the maximum points in the Yodel sprint competition, and their leader is Peter Gilibert, who's got a handsome lead of 23 points, and he could actually tidy that classification up today.
Yeah, I would think that he would be able to do that even without sprinting. This is going to be in a very aggressive stage, especially early on, because everybody knows that there could be a chance of gaining a stage, because you've got to remember there's a lot of teams in this race, 16 teams, and only a few of the teams have had some success with stage wins and leaders' jerseys. There's a lot of other teams in here that have to be more aggressive.
Sigma Sports Specialised coming across as well, and now we've got 5 riders. This is a lovely size of group, and once they start to get together, in fact there's 6, half a dozen riders then have now got clear of the main peloton.
Well, it's the Ant Posh rider Bagdonis at the front. Rally representing Sigma Sport, Endura Racing, and just looking down the back, the Top Sport Vlaanderen and Europe car.
So it's a rich mix of different teams, and the observations tell us straight away there's nobody from the big players. Rabobank, they've got nobody there, and nobody from HTC High Road or Sky. So they're probably going to let this slip away.
Yeah, I would think that Rabobank would be very happy with this. 4 continental teams in here and 2 pro-continental teams, so no Pro Tour teams riding in this front 6.
Ian Wilkinson, the British rider in the Endura team, well, he's got a powerful sprint if they go all the way to the finish. Well, they've already got just over a minute advantage, and look at the Rabobank team, they look quite content with this.
Yeah, they're happy. They just have to control things, ride on the front. It's going to be a long day, as we said, the longest stage of this year's Tour of Britain, and you've got to remember that Theo Boss is no longer with this team, so they've only got 5 riders. They've got the gold jersey plus 4 other teammates, so it's going to be a tough day for them.
Well, the team of Rabobank have still got Lars Boone, the overall leader in it, of course. Flens, Matthews, Tankink and Vermelt Fort. The one retiree is Theo Boss, who placed 3rd on the opening stage, but he subsequently pulled out. Well, there they are, and they're just crossing the line to start the first of the King of the Mountains.
Well, we've seen the King of the Mountains already in the Tour of Britain this year, and this is pretty much nothing. We've got 3 third category climbs today, and it's pretty easy. These guys will zip up these climbs quite easily, and looking at the front 6, I can't see any threat whatsoever to John Tiernan's Locks jersey.
And the thing is, with the King of the Mountains, Jonathan Tiernan Locke on the Rafa Conda Sharp team, he's already got 71 points, so he's 23 ahead of anybody else, and it's 4 to the top of each of these third category climbs. So if the same man wins all 3, it's only going to amass 12 points. There is the result for you, and it is the Lithuanian, who's a very talented rider, that was first to the summit.
Well, at the front of the main peloton at the moment, you've got Rabobank, the complete team there of 5 riders. Just behind them, you've got the NetApp team from Germany looking after their 2nd place overall.
Now then, we can join Janto Barker, who has a different form of transport today.
Here we are, stage 7 of the Tour of Britain. Saturday, it's quite a sunny day, bit of a crosswind from the right-hand side. We're in the east of England, from Bury St Edmunds to Sandringham. The breakaway is 6 riders. They've established a gap of 3 minutes 50 currently and are working well together. So we're going to stay here and see how they get on as they try and establish a lead big enough to get to the finish without being caught.
Well, welcome back, and the 6 riders are working very, very smoothly now and getting further away from the peloton.
Well, they're all taking their equal share at the front as this gap goes up to the peloton to 5:30, getting close to that magic figure of 5:53, which Nerik from Top Sport Vlaanderen is in the breakaway, so getting close to virtual leader on the roads.
And of course the Rabobank team will be aware of that, so you'll probably find that the advantage will get pegged once it nears that 6-minute mark.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. Top Sport Vlaanderen rider just at the back on the left-hand side was Nerik. He's too worried about that at the moment. It's been in the back of his mind. I think most of these riders will be quite content in trying to stay out front and for that stage. So I can't see this gap getting any much bigger than it is at the moment.
So they're into the city roads here now as the rider on the front from Europe Car takes over the pace setting.
Yeah, we're just 1 kilometre to this sprint. We're getting well into the stage at the moment. Everybody taking their turn at the front. Nobody really sitting at the back. So this 6-man breakaway wants to try and go all the way to the finish. But they're going to have a hard job because HTC with Mark Cavendish will want to try and take another stage.
And this first sprint in the Yodel sprint competition takes place in Portman Road, actually, right outside Ipswich Football Club. And I must admit, it's fortuitous that they are not playing today. I think they're playing on Monday.
And you can just see the football ground just in the distance there. But it's great to see 3 domestic teams in this 6-man breakaway of Endura Racing, Sigma Sport and Rally.
And it doesn't matter, as I said earlier, whoever does win the points, because that competition is in the hands of Pieter Gilibert, who is the teammate, actually, of Bagdonas, the Lithuanian, in this group.
Well, we swing right here and they'll see the sprint line, and I'm not too sure they'll really sprint flat out as we've seen earlier on in the Tour of Britain, because these points and these seconds don't really mean much to these guys, because they're always thinking of trying to get to the finish.
And it is actually Bagdonis of An Post that crosses the line first, so he gets the 5 points. There's the rest of the result for you. But it's good actually to see the race coming through Ipswich. It's a hotbed of cyclo-cross actually in the winter, and the European Cyclo-Cross Championships take place here in 2012. And in actual fact, it was where Roger Hammond won one of his national championships, and of course Roger is riding today on the Garmin Cervelo team.
Yeah, the Garmin Cervelo team have ridden pretty well. They've got Daniel Lloyd, the British rider, sitting in third place overall. We haven't seen too much of Roger Hammond. I'm pretty sure we might see him today. It's the type of stage that might suit him, but this six-man breakaway is all still back riding in this chain format of taking a turn at the front, and nobody's skipping a turn by sitting at the back at this moment.
Well, they are lovely smooth roads here in the town, ideal for keeping the speed high.
Well, the biggest thing for Rabobank today is they just have to keep it pegged about 6.5 minutes, because if it goes above there, see where we're seeing it at the moment, 5:40 at the moment, so it's really in control, these five-man riders from the Rabobank team. But these six-man riders cannot really afford to push it too much at the moment, because they are dictating the speed of the race at the moment.
I think it's worth reinforcing the point you made earlier as well, that Neering, this Belgian who's on the Topsport Flandrian team, he's actually 5 minutes 53 down on the gold jersey wearer of Last Boom. So he's the only threat, isn't he?
Yeah, most of the other riders are well down in the general classification, and they'll be just thinking of this stage one. And the Rabobank team only have to keep them about the 6 minute mark. You've got to remember that maybe some of the other teams like HTC and Sky might come out and help them out towards the finish, because they'll be thinking of the stage. You've got to remember again that HTC have got 2 stage wins already, but Sky have got nothing from this race, so they'll be trying to, salvage something, possibly a stage win.
You start analysing the strength of the riders here that are away. I know it's early in the stage, but you have got to fancy Ian Wilkinson for a possibility of getting the stage, as they just take this left-hander here and they swing into Christchurch Park in Ipswich.
And it's the start of the King of the Mountains, and as we hit the second King of the Mountains of today, again another third climb through the grounds, and again no threat whatsoever to John Tiernan Log.
Very, very picturesque, and big crowds have turned out to support the race again. And at the moment, it's ideal. I must admit, the weather forecast has said blustery conditions and the possibility of heavy showers. But so far, everywhere is bathed in sunshine.
Well, there's fantastic crowds here through the park, and everybody again taking their turn at the front. They just have to take it easy on the inclines and save their energy. Once they get over the top, into that formation again and keep the tempo up. The first hour of racing was run off at just over 28 miles an hour, so these guys weren't really hanging about.
Well, of course, the route today, Brian, it swings back on itself, doesn't it? So we could go through a period where there's going to be some crosswind racing.
Yes, we're expecting some crosswinds later on, but again, look at the crowd. It's getting thicker and thicker the further we get up this climb.
Astonishing, isn't it? It's just like the continent. They are hooked on this race and they're watching the action every evening, and it is encouraging the fans to come out to support the riders. They're obviously hoping to get a glimpse of Cavendish as well.
Yeah, I think that has had a great influence in British cycling at the moment. He's become very, very popular with the the normal general public, and that's the people that don't wear lycra as well. So it's a fantastic to have such an ambassador for British cycling.
But at the moment, the overall situation in the race, of course, is still in the hands of Last Boom. And Last Boom, once he got that gold jersey on his shoulders after stage 2, has never let it go. Well, they've crossed the line, and let's just see who's there first. Well, it was Neering that picked up the 5 points, and you can see the rest of the positions, but it doesn't have any effect on that King of the Mountains contest that's already been won, as I said earlier, by Jonathan Tiernan Locke.
We're back onto open roads again after being through that very busy park. And again, these riders, I'll just be thinking, keep the tempo up, keep it together, because all 6 riders will be a great help and a great advantage to, you know, all the riders in the front and 6 riders thinking of the stage win at the end, because you've got to remember that again, there's only 6 men per team, and already Rabobank have lost 1 rider in Theo Boss, and they've got 4 riders in the front to help that gold jersey.
I'm just looking further down the line, and I can't see anybody from HTC High Road. And can you see anybody from Sky near the front?
Well, not at the moment, Hugh, but I'm pretty sure they'll be up there later on.
And they're just going past the Sir Bobby Robson stand as they swing right again here, and they'll be on their way out of the town very shortly and then back into the countryside.
Well, you can just see the bunch are just going over the sprint line at the moment, while the riders, the 6 riders in front, are already ahead and over the next climb of the stage.
Look at the lead now, Brian. 6 minutes and 28 seconds. Now, I feel sure that the big team at the front are going to start to put the pedal down here and try and ramp the pace up.
Yeah, you just see all the Sky riders at the back of the bunch at the moment, so I'm not too sure what they're thinking, but it's the Rabobank now have to ride a wee bit stronger now, because you've got to remember that Neering is 5:53 and is a virtual leader on the road at the moment.
Well, we shall see that lead start to tumble, I feel sure, and that's going to start immediately. Those boys in orange down there get themselves organised by lifting the pace, and they're going to do it. You can take that from me.
Well, they have to. It's a matter of fact that who's really going to help them. You've got the team of NetApp just sitting down there, 4 or 5 of their riders just sitting there, and they've got 2nd place overall, so I'm pretty sure that they're going to try and help Rabobank if this gap gets any bigger.
And that man that's in the 2nd position is Koenig, 28 seconds back from Boom, and then just 1 second behind Koenig is Daniel Lloyd. Now, Lloyd and Koenig are not particularly hot time trialers, so their positions tomorrow, if it remains like this, could come under pressure from the better men against the clock.
Oh, they're definitely threatened, and a lot of riders will be thinking of that time trial as we swing left into the next part.
And ahead of them, Helmingham Hall. And look at the marked contrast now here, Brian. This is just a park path compared with some of the big wide roads they've been racing on.
Yeah, but at least we see some of the beautiful, you know, houses in this part of the country. Don't think the riders would be too interested in having a look. They're more interested in what lays ahead.
And the peloton have actually just gone over the 2nd King of the Mountains of the day in Christchurch Park in Ipswich. But the beauty of the lead that these 6 are starting to establish, Brian, means that they could be in with a serious chance here of gaining a stage victory.
Well, they don't want to put it out too much because alarm bells will ring with some of the other teams that are up there in overall, and they'll start helping out Rabobank. So what they have to do is just settle the pace down at the moment and just be content, because they'll need all their strength for the last few kilometres of this stage today.
Actually, if the gap was about 4.5 minutes, you may well find that would remain pegged, because Rabobank would be comfy with that.
Yeah, I think they're comfortable with it being about 6.5 minutes at the moment. You've got to remember as well that these are Pro Tour teams, and they will bring the gap back down towards the finish and the last few kilometres. So these guys are doing well at the moment.
Well, they're working consistently and smoothly. We'll be back. Welcome back, and the 6 leaders are still ahead, and you can see their advantage. It's still healthy.
Yeah, it's still pegging about 6.5 minute mark, and you know, these riders just taking their turn at the front, coming to the back, going up the line again, and it's still remaining very, very steady. So Rabobank will be happy with this, and so will these riders in the breakaway.
Do you know, I think the big teams that are controlling the peloton don't realise the strength of some of these lads that have slipped away in this group, Brian. I mean, for instance, Sibrandi, who's on the Sigma Sport team, is a very strong time trialer, and also Wilkinson is powerful as well. So they have probably underestimated their ability. And also Bagdonas, this Lithuanian, as you mentioned earlier in the commentary, he won the RAS, and to win that, you've got to be really classy.
No, for sure, these guys have, you know, slipped under the radar as we hit the last of the King of the Mountains, where I think these guys are just going to roll over the top. They are just keeping it all together. Everybody just taking their turn at the front. And
of course, the course today is a total contrast to the last 2 days we've had, where there's been severe, brutal climbs for the field to tackle. Here, of course, these climbs, well, as you said, they'll just fly over them.
Yeah, it's just small undulations today. This is more fast, more sporting, and that's where we're seeing some of the lower division teams in the breakaway today.
Well, I've just been mentioning how strong one or two of the riders are in this group, but we're still about 80 miles to go once they've crossed this next climb. What do you think? Do you feel that the Rabobank outfit are gambling on the fact that they'll run out of steam?
Well, I'm not too sure these guys will run out of steam. It's a very strong breakaway. They're all taking a fair share of their turns at the front, so I'm thinking that Rabobank are just letting them go at 6:30, 6:39 and trying to invite other teams to come to the front to help them. And of course, who are going to help them?
Once again, let me just label the men in this group. It's Wilkinson of Endura, Neerink on the Transport Flandrian, Hanley of Raleigh, Bagdanus of An Post, Zybrandi, who's a very speedy Dutchman on the Sigma Sport team, and then the Frenchman, who's Claude. And here it is, crossing the line. You see they're not contesting the points because obviously they're not in a position to challenge the overall King of the Mountains. There we are, it's all academic, but there is the result for you.
Well, you can just see they're not really pushing too hard, and it's all about just maintaining that advantage. They know they're going to have a big job later on in this stage if they're going to hold off the likes of HTC and Sky. They're probably going to come to the front to try and chase them down. You've got to remember there is a stage win up for grabs at the end of the stage today.
Well, Richard Hanley, he's the youngest member of this group, riding on the rally team, and as a junior he was a national time trial champion, as we show the advantage at 6 minutes 20.
Yeah, Rick Flynn's riding at the front. The whole Rabobank team have done a tremendous ride in this race so far, and they're just pegging it at 6 minutes and 20. 5 minutes and 53 to Neerink in front, and they're well in control of this stage. What they're just trying to do is invite some other teams to come up and help them. Nobody is at the moment, but there's still a long way to go in this stage yet.
And they are working consistently. Nobody actually is refusing to take the pace setting on at the front because they know they've all got a lot to gain.
Well, it's great to see. You've got 3 domestic teams in here, a mixture of nationalities, and they're all communicating well, and this is very important to see that all 6 riders are taking a turn at the front, just thinking of that stage win.
I think it's fair also to make a reference to the team in that break in the red and black. That's the Sigma Sport Specialized. They figured quite strongly. We'll come back to that as we look once again at the Rabobank team.
Oh, just look behind them, Hugh. You've got some of the riders from HTC coming up and having a wee bit of chat. So maybe we're trying to see some of the HTC high road team come to the front and help out Rabobank.
Well, they are now in the park, and ahead of them is Lavenham Hill. Look at that, it's beginning to fragment a little bit here, but that of course is because of the nature of the road, and the long thin line is beginning to stretch out.
Yeah, it's small and thin, a wee bit of gravel here, so they'll just be taking it easy. Nobody wants to fall, nobody wants to put anybody in jeopardy, so just a wee bit gingerly around that corner there.
Yeah, you're right there. They were very cautious, weren't they? So as you say, there's probably just a little bit of gravel on that park path, and you don't want to slide away and crash. We've had 1 or 2 crashes throughout this race. But back to that earlier comment I was making, Brian, Sigma Sport Specialized, for a small team, they figured quite strongly in this race as well. And I mean, Russell Hampton has challenged well for the King of the Mountains.
Yeah, Zybrandi has done really well, and we did see Russell Hampton, and as I said before, it's fantastic to see the domestic riders in amongst the breakaways. But the team for me this year in the Tour of Britain has to be the An Post Grant Thornton team of Sean Kelly, and he's actually in the car today, so he'll be thinking that with Bagdonis, the recent Tour of Ireland RAS winner, that he's in with a good chance today.
And that's why they're inspired when you've got a man like Sean Kelly following the race. Let's face it, one of the greatest bike riders that the professional scene has produced. They must be inspired to impress him.
Yeah, Endura racing. We've seen them over the last couple of stages with Jack Bauer, Alex Wetterall, and especially yesterday with Iker Kamano getting caught within the last 500 metres. And Ian Wilkinson, Superman they call him, is really up for a stage win today. And this could suit him, but they've still got a long way to go, and they've still got to hold off this fast-moving peloton behind.
Well, the manager, Kurt Bogerts, is the man in charge of the An Post Sean Kelly team, and the man in charge of the Sigma Sport Specialised team is Matt Stevens, and Stevens himself has been a national champion. So both these men, with wise heads, have actually steered their charges well.
Well, you've got a lot of experience in the team cars, and a lot of directors are ex-pros, but again, looking, Rabobank still leading the way. Just behind them is 4 or 5 of the HTC High Road team coming up to the front. Just behind them, you've got the NetApp team as the gap just hovers again over the 6 minute mark.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see just when the chase does start, and they're leaving themselves a lot of work to do. I know there's still a long way, but that's a big gap to close down, and I know we've said it several times in commentary, but the 6 ahead are all very powerful.
Yeah, they just hold them over the 6-minute mark, and again, it's all about inviting other teams to come to the front to help them out, because they don't want to ride the whole 124 miles of this stage behind this 6-man breakaway, because at the end of the day, when we come into the last final kilometres, this race is down to seconds, and Larsboom could be attacked as we go into Sandringham Park at the finish.
Well, the peloton, who are trailing by nearly 7 minutes, are heading on towards that final climb at Framsden, as we look at the leading 6 who are approaching the second of the Yodel sprints today, and that's at Dis. There they are, crossing the line. And it's still Rabobank. Well, they haven't seen anybody else. They're all having a ride behind them, aren't they?
Well, they have got the IG Markets gold jersey wearer and Larsboom, so it's really up to them to control things as this gap starts to creep up more and more.
When we saw that last shot of the peloton, and we caught the first glimpse today also of the world champion Tour Hushoff. So this is the kind of terrain that could suit Hushoff, and if he gets a comfy ride in the wheels and it all comes back together, that's another man to throw in the mix for the sprint.
Well, this is the man we're talking about, the Top Sport Flandern rider, and he is 5 minutes and 53 over the overall look. And look, Hugh, 7:05, alarm bells will start to be ringing in some of the other teams.
Well, we're in Dis now, and just ahead you can see the line, and once they're over that, there's just one more sprint to go in the Yodel sprint competition today. And I think you're right there, Brian. Somebody surely is going to have to start to apply the pressure at the head of the peloton. There is the official result for you. The man from Lithuania, Bagdonas, crosses the line in first place, just as he did in the opening sprint in Ipswich. Well, let's join Janto again out there on the open roads.
We've taken in some of the most beautiful villages here in the east of England. It's not very hilly, so the mountains this morning haven't been that hard. We've got very exposed, there is a crosswind, and it's changed as we've come round on the stage that started out heading south and has changed to going north. So we're heading now up to Sandringham. There's a crosswind from the left-hand side. As you can see, quite bright, quite sunny, actually very good temperature to ride in because you don't sweat too much as a rider. So they've been pressing on incredibly fast and will continue to do so, I'm sure, till the finish. There's going to be a furious chase if they want to catch these guys. Barely anybody has missed a turn.
Welcome back. The 6 breakaway riders were still away as they approached the final sprint of the day at Wyndham, but conditions were deteriorating. Their lead, though, still very much intact.
Well, we're into the closing kilometres of this, the longest stage. You can see the lead. The question you've got to ask yourself is, can they hang on for the sprint?
Well, the maximum this lead was 7 minutes and 5 seconds, and it's come really down towards the final few kilometres. With 5 kilometres to go, 2 minutes and 10, the winner's going to come from this group.
You think so? I mean, can they hold off the bunch?
Yeah, almost definitely. The winner is going to come from one of these riders, which is fantastic. We've seen a lot of great winners: Thor Hushoff, Mark Cavendish, Larsboom, Mark Renshaw, but we're going to see one of the smaller teams coming away with a stage win today.
So really we ought to start to analyse the strength of the sprinters here. We know that Bagdonas, the Lithuanian, is powerful, and also Ian Wilkinson. Probably they're the 2 best in the finish.
Well, they have been away for a long period of time, and it kind of drags up into the park, and the finishing line isn't easy. You've got to remember that it's who's got the strength left in the legs to pull out a sprint at the end.
Well, the big teams are starting to come through to the head of the peloton, but I definitely think they've left it too late.
Yeah, well, it's Rabobank, it's leading the way at the moment. The gold jersey just on the left-hand side, having a look around. Well, the winner is going to come from the leading group of 6 riders, but who's it going to be? But there's still some points for the points jersey to be had.
If you looked at the front of the peloton there, you could see that 1 or 2 of the sprinters were trying to make their way through to the head of the field, particularly Tour Hushoff in that World Championship jersey.
Well, HTC Hydro did put a few riders on the front to bring this gap down, but I think they're thinking at the moment that the stage is actually gone.
Back to that comment I made a little earlier, I feel that the peloton have underestimated the strength of the riders here in this group.
Well, every one of the 6 riders in front are prepared to take their turn all the way into the finishing line because they want to try and guarantee that they get one of these guys gets a stage win today.
Well, Cavendish took a look back there, didn't he? But have you noticed it's gone back up? It's 2:30 now.
They've given up the ghost now. They know that they're going for the 7th place, the minor placings. So it's going to be very interesting how this final sprint plays out with the 6 in front.
So they've turned the power off here then at the front of the peloton, and the rhythm just being tapped out by the Rabobank team with that gold jersey leader Lars Boom sitting in 3rd position. And that's played definitely into the hands of the leaders. It's edged back up then to 2.5 minutes, and that's a nice useful cushion for the breakaway 6 to get to the finish ahead.
Well, it just goes to show you sometimes these smaller teams, the 2nd and 3rd division teams, can outsmart the big Pro Tour teams. So this is fantastic stage. Great to see a new person and a new team on the podium tonight.
Well, it's a stellar performance by this group. They took their chance, they slipped away after just about 3.5 miles, and they've never ever given up. They've had their hopes high all the way, and it looks very much to me as though one of these riders is going to end up with a fruitful victory.
Well, we have got 3 domestic teams here from Great Britain, Sigma Sport, Rally and Enduro Racing, with 3 kilometres to go. If one of these guys could win, it could be the first win by a domestic team since this Tour of Britain started in 2004.
They're carrying on, powering on inexorably then towards the finish in Sandringham Estate. Now then, will any of these take a chance and try and jump away for the lone victory?
Well, I'm not too sure. It depends on how much they've got left in their legs. It's been 124 miles, the longest stage of the Tour so far, and I think it's going to just be a matter of strength. Who's got enough strength left in their legs?
It certainly derailed the hopes of the peloton, because I think when they began to ramp the pace up, they thought that they would reel them back in, but I'm afraid not. And now, as you said, they are sprinting for the minor places, but the 6 ahead are going to start to get a little bit twitchy now. But it is hard, isn't it, to try and jump clear and distance yourself, because with roads as straight as that, it would be almost impossible to stay away.
Yeah, it's just rising up ever so slightly. Walter Sabrandi at Sigma Sport just starting to dangle off the back of the other 5 at the moment, all prepared to keep it going all the way to the line. This is going to be a very, very difficult sprint for a lot of these riders. We have been out there for a long, long time today in different conditions.
Now, all these riders will, of course, read the handbook and discussed it with the manager on the kind of approach into the Sandringham Estate. So, what do you think is going to happen here?
Well, it looks as if Zabrandi's back at the back for Sigma Sport, so the 6 riders going to come into the Sandringham Park. It's a bit of a horseshoe finish in the last kilometre. The road surfaces are okay, but again, it's going to come down to who's got enough strength left in the legs.
Well, no man from Lithuania has ever won a stage in this Tour of Britain, so I'm just wondering if Bagdonis is going to change that statistic.
And it's Matt Bramier, the Irish champion, pushing hard at the front with the gold jersey well in contention. Endura just on the right hand side with Paul Voss. But you've got to remember that these guys are riding for 7th place.
And thinking about the British victories as well, there's been 7. Mark Cavendish has got 3. Hammond's got 2. Ben Swift 1 and Paul Manning 1. Now then, can Ian Wilkinson add to the tally?
Well, the 6 riders are still together now. I would have thought maybe there was a couple of riders maybe have gone on the attack, but every one of these riders, maybe not Sigma Sport at the back with Walter Zabrandi, kind of hanging on slightly, but these guys thinking that they maybe can outsprint each other.
Well, there he is, Wilkinson, just crouching down. He's won many a sprint in the closed city centre races, and he's had 1 or 2 handy road victories to his credit as well. But there it is, the Flamme Rouge, 1 kilometre to go. Who will cover themselves in glory at the end of this?
Well, it's Ian Wilkinson at the front, Hanley of Raleigh in 2nd place. They're all starting to play cat and mouse, looking behind. Nobody wants to try and lead this out, and a stage win in the Tour of Britain for one of these teams is going to be absolutely fantastic.
And the thing is, Wilkinson at the moment is in the worst position. Now that's better. He needs to get into the wheels, so he's got the element of surprise. And it looks very much to me as though they've worked the man from An Post to the front, and that's Bagdonis.
Well, these are the type of sprints we see more in the track racing, and they're looking behind, and everybody just having a wee bit of respect for each other. And the rider in the green at the front from An Post is probably one of the strongest sprinters, as you said, but let's forget the enduro racing rider of Ian Wilkinson.
the element of surprise. Now then, Wilkinson's further back. Can he jump down the outside of the line and make a gap? McDonough at the moment looks quite content to set this up from the front. Here we go. Looks like an early strike for home by the young rider from Raleigh. This is Richard Hanley of Team Raleigh. He's having a crack, but the rest have latched onto it. He hasn't made a hole. He's now forced to lead this one out, and the man that could profit from it is McDonough in second place. Now then, where's Wilkinson? He's sat up. He knows he's gone too early. Here comes Wilkinson on the right. Now then, is he going to cover himself in glory and nail the stage victory? He's trying to stall the others. He knows it's still quite a long way to go. He hasn't committed himself fully. There it is, 100 metres to go, then he's back here. Now here he goes again, and McDonough is coming as well in the middle, and Wilkinson, I think, has caught napping there, and he can't close him down, and it looks like McDonough is going to take this up to the line. Wilkinson, he's trying to challenge, but he's going to run out of distance. He does. So over the line first, it's McDonough of Anpost, Sean Kelly, and second here Wilkinson of Enduro Racing, and just tailed off the back there was Richard Handley, who went first.
Not only have they won the stage, they've got a rider at the front as Anpost inside the last kilometre for the bunch.
And there's a rider from Leopard Trek sitting in second spot, and the world champion Tur Hushoff is there in the mix in that rainbow jersey, and right on the outside of him is Lars Boom, the overall race leader, and also in the blue there you can see Geraint Thomas, and he's in the prostate cancer charity jersey. Well, one or two big names lining up at the front here, but also crouching down in second spot is Mark Cavendish in those dark classes, the fastest finisher on the planet. So if he can finish seventh, he'll pick up some handy points here in the points competition. They're beginning to gather themselves now as the line's getting ever nearer. Here comes the challenge on the right, and this is Tur Hushoff, the world champion. Hushoff is leading this out. Look at Cavendish, that typical crouching style of the Manx Express as he moves forward and comes into the wheel of Hushoff. Hushoff stalled for a moment. You can't do that when you got Cavendish closing you down. Now then, here we are, the concluding stages. He looks over the shoulder again, and it leaves Cavendish at the front, and now he's beginning to unwind, and this is what the big crowd have come to see. Cavendish, holding the rest at bay, comes in to cross the line in seventh position.
Well, it just goes to show you, Mark Cavendish, he won a stage, and now thinking of the points jersey by taking seventh place. But back to the slow motion of the finish, McDonough just has to march on everybody else at the moment. They're on the wheel, and Ian Wilkinson just gets that wee bit more strength, tries to come round the left-hand side and just runs out of road.
So history in the making here, the first Lithuanian ever in the Tour of Britain to win a stage, and his name, McDonough. He is the victor here in Sandringham Estate. Look out for the time trial tomorrow.
Into the headwind, over the finish line, and into a little bit of history. The Tour of Britain casts its net still wider and welcomes its first ever Lithuanian winner. Anpost's Gediminas Bagdonas taking stage 7 ahead of Endura's Ian Wilkinson, who opened up his efforts just a fraction early and ran out of road to come back. Mark Cavendish won the sprint at the front of the bunch to finish 7th.
My manager said today try attack and go breakaway, and today my good were relaxed, and I'm very happy. It's today win stage. It's first my victory, like this big victory.
Bagdonas then taking the biggest win of his career to date, and another podium for a team that has made its mark on every stage of the Tour. Peter Gilbert, the other man from Anpost, green on green, winning the Yodel Sprints jersey outright after today's stage. John Tin and Locke had already won his Skoda King of the Mountains jersey after yesterday, so a quiet day in the saddle for him. Lars Boom still leads the prostate cancer charity points competition, but the 9 points Mark Cavendish picked up at the finish line have closed his lead to just 3 heading for London. But there's almost nothing anyone can do about this man. Lars Boom's lead intact and unchanged at the top of the general classification. It's as you were then. A terrific tussle though for the podium places in London tomorrow, with Koenig, Lloyd, Gerdemann and Cummings all within 4 seconds of one another. Well, it wasn't perhaps the HTC High Road fireworks that many people might have expected. Nonetheless, a great day's racing, and excellent for the breakaway, who worked well together and rode out an individual win there as well, didn't they?
Absolutely. Biggest break of the week we've seen in the Tour of Britain this year. 6 riders working really well together. I was sitting on the motorbike behind them and they were travelling so fast. They really dropped below 30 miles an hour. 28.3 miles, I think, covered in the first hour and something similar in the second. So, yeah, very good job by the boys.
A really windy stage, and it was obvious that HTC High Road needed help if they were going to chase that down. It's a small team, not the 9-man team you might see on the Tour de France. They've lost one rider anyway, so it was tough for them, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was also a cross tailwind to the finish, which definitely helps breakaways. And as I drove the course, I suspected it was going to cause a few problems for the main field if they were going to bring them back.
Yeah. And once again, we saw a whole cluster of riders, including the Sprints jersey and the King of the Mountains jersey wearer, who come from the lesser teams, if you like. They've represented themselves really well on this race, haven't they?
Yeah, I think it's a sign of two things. One is motivation, and two, how many races they've ridden so far this year already. I actually spoke to Dave Brailsford today, who said he thought Swifty and Geraint were both a bit tired.
Yeah.
I hope he doesn't mind me saying that, but yeah, so that possibly coming into play to some effect so late in the year.
And tomorrow, Janto, the big finale in London, it's going to be spectacular, isn't it, with the time trial and then the criterium race?
Yeah, you get two chances to appreciate a fantastic race and a great spectacle in what is an iconic area of London.
It will be fabulous indeed. Thanks very much, Janto. OK, join us for tomorrow's coverage of the final day of this Tour of Britain.